PR Connections Radio presents the Love of Business Podcast. The Love of Business, nurturing the entrepreneurial spirit.
All right. Welcome to the Love of Business podcast. I'm your co-host, Davin Sundvick, and joined with me today is Edgar Rodrigues, our other co-host, and our guest today, Fabrice Jordan. Breeze, could you give me just like about a 1 minute about you, kind of your business, and just kind of introduce yourself to the audience here?
Yes. My name is Breeze. I am the owner of Raw Marketing Group and Fabulous Travel Agency. We are an AI and automation digital marketing agency here in Las Vegas. So we just help people to create a lot of systems, automate their practice, and then we can give them some more of those traditional digital marketing things like, media buying and SEO and things like that as well. On the travel agency side, we specialize in luxury travel. We just send people all over the world. Been doing that since the top of COVID. So funny story, we started that January 2020, and then March 2020, nobody could travel. So we've been
there you go.
Then.
Nice. Very good. Well, thanks for coming on. And Edgar, give a little bit about yourself before, and then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll get right into our questions here.
Yeah, so I'm the other co-host here with Davin for the Love of Business podcast. And in what we do is in business growth strategy. As a certified business coach, we help busy professionals gain some of their time back through coaching and figuring out, why they started the company and putting them back in the position of, getting to the love of what they do and just giving them time back to be able to enjoy with loved ones.
That's good. All right. So my name is Davin Sundvick. Just a reminder, I'm in the real estate industry as a broker. So what that means is I handle clients. I help people buy a home more efficiently, give them the tools and resources and the connections to be able to do that, because it takes a lot of people in order to close a home sale. On the selling side, I help people with their marketing strategy, help them market their home effectively. And for agents, I help coach them and build them strategies to help them attract clients and better serve their clientele so that they're more successful with referrals. So with that being said, Edgar, what do you got today for our first question for Breeze?
Yeah, so I'm excited for 2024. Breeze, I want to say thank you for taking the time of being on this episode, for the Love of Business. We've known each other quite a while, all three of us. So First question for you would be, in a rapidly changing business landscape, in today's world, especially with AI and all the fun, bright lights and tools that are out there, how do you adapt and navigate the current landscape? Or what would you say to someone who's in that era of like, how do we adapt to the new stuff that's out?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is do your research, right? If you do your research, you're not going to be shocked as much, when things happen, and you can actually trust your gut. I think in business, a lot of people kind of grow that intuition to, trust their gut, but it takes a long time, right? It might be like after year 5 even. But that's the main thing. If you do your own research, you're just not going to be surprised. So I just make sure to kind of, double down on the research. That's a part of my personal growth as well, is just researching these things and learning about new technology. I personally appreciate that a ton, but I know it's harder for other people. So before you drop all your chips into one bucket or change your whole business model to like a full AI model and you don't really understand it, that's something that you should be researching and figuring out what that's going to be, because it's changing every day.
No, I can relate to that. And, kind of a philosophy I have that's kind of on the same track is, if you hear one person's opinion, it might sound a little crazy, but if you hear 100 people's opinion, you'll probably know what's going on. So,
right.
Yeah, I definitely say doing the research and taking a little bit of time to get sharper, to trust that gut. that's going to help you in the decision-making process, because everything's going to change. Nothing's going to stay static. So no, that's a good one there.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of times too, we kind of ignore things that are like right in front of us, right? These things are hiding in plain sight. So, changes on Instagram that will make it easier or harder to get traffic, for example, those are on Instagram.com, right? They pop up all the time. Or if a new feature pops up on Instagram, it pops up right in front of you or right at the top. And we just kind of scroll past it, or we just kind of move it to the side. But if you take a second to learn that tool and you start using it first, you're going to be able to from that faster. And those are going to continue to happen. It's not like it's done. These platforms are forever changing.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's learning to adopt with the changes, right? And knowing that by doing your market research, right, in what you were talking about, Breeze, is really, really do an in-depth research of, okay, is this the best product, right, or service for my company and what we're doing, or is this the right technology that we currently need? And doing an audit of, okay, what is it that's burning right now that we actually can help us scale and grow, versus looking at everything that's out there and trying to take on too much. And I've seen that time and time again, right? It's knowing that, hey, we have to test it. Let's see how it works. Let's measure and see what the outcome was, the actual result, and how do we pivot and go from there. So something I wanted to go back on, you talked about the travel agency business, because that's something that all of us want to do, right? We all work hard to be able to enjoy these destinations that you send people to. Now, when you started this business, you mentioned that you started in January and then boom, COVID hit March, everything shut down. Since then, let's talk about that business a little bit. And what have you learned that excites you with being able to give people the ability to travel to destinations they never thought were possible?
Yeah, man, the main thing that I learned about that is just, there are certain industries that are always going to be a thing, right? So even when it happened, everything closed down in March. I remember I was in Las Vegas and we were throwing a big event here. And as the event is starting up and as the event is going, everybody's getting their phone pinged. Oh, no gatherings bigger than 100. Oh, no gatherings bigger than 50. Oh, no gatherings bigger than 20. And here we are sitting in a room full of people and we're just like, everybody's panicking. And I'm just thinking of the ramifications that it's going to have on my business. And so when it came to the travel agency, it was like, we can either stop it now because we've only been doing it for 3 months at that time, or we can figure out, what the next best solution is. What's another way to grow the audience, which is what we decided to do, which is grow our Facebook page, Facebook group, and our Instagram, to at least engage those people with the same messaging that travel is going to be back again, and so just figuring out that system and then making sure that all of that pent up energy towards wanting to travel, that we were just able to capitalize on and then keep snowballing it out, right? Because essentially this is a business to where you can have, lifelong customers, right? The lifetime value of somebody, they can travel essentially 2 times a year and stay with you for a decade or more. So that's one of those things. You just have to be a good steward of that and have good customer service with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you mentioned it where, there's pent up demand, right? The demand to travel, the demand to buy homes, the demand to get business coaching and to start, your financial freedom journey through owning a business or entrepreneurship. Those things are all existing even in the economic times where it can't happen. So the people who are marketing, they're top of mind. Those are the people who get the business, not when it opens back up and they jump right in. They're too late to catch that wave. So no, that's good on you for recognizing that. So
yeah, I mean, we got into it, with the idea in mind that there's going to be certain industries that have a giant market cap, right? Like they have a giant amount of demand and audience, and there are a lot of markets to where they get shaken up all the time, right? Digital marketing is one of those. If you don't stay on top of it all the time, then you're going to be doing something that's being phased out by ChatGPT. You know what I mean? Or you're going to be doing something that most people would rather have no human interaction to have, right? There used to be people who would just set up people's calendars, right? That could be something that an assistant was doing for a long amount of time. Now there's just one less task that you have to do with things like Calendly and these other apps. So
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you talked about, the ability to adapt and started to join Facebook groups, right? And just putting it back out there that, hey, look, eventually things are going to come back. The
Right.
key in what you're saying is that you have to stay top of mind, front of mind, right? And that goes across any business, right? If people don't know what it is you actually do,
Mhm.
how are they supposed to find you? And this isn't just in the travel agency, in the digital marketing world, in the real estate world, in the business coaching world. It's this is advice in general, right?
Every
People,
business, right? Yeah.
yeah. And how do you do that in today's world with technology changing so fast? So what are some tips that you would give people, Breeze? Because this is your space, right? This is
Yeah.
exactly what it is you do, how you help other people have that visibility that we all want. It's not going to
Right.
happen overnight. And so I'm curious to see what your advice would be, and how could that resonate with someone?
Yeah. The main thing is just being where your audience is, right? I think that's one thing that people don't care to do, or they just make excuses, right? Like, we know that we should be doing a lot of different things, but there's only a handful of pieces that we're able to master at a time. And then we don't set and forget some of the other pieces, right? We can't automate this piece and then jump into another one. So we'll learn a little bit here, then we stop, and then we learn a little bit here. These need to keep going, right? So everything that you learn, you should find a way to keep it going without you, so that way you can continue to grow from it. Otherwise, it was just another skill that you learned.
Mhm.
With Americans, especially, our short-term memory is way better, or excuse me, our long-term memory is way better than our short-term. You know what I mean? So this kind of thing is it can get kind of crazy in the business space when you're not sitting in front of your audience. It makes you feel like the people don't really value you. You know what I mean? Like, you've talked to people times, but then as soon as they have an opportunity to do business with you, they do business with somebody else.
Yeah.
And we kind of do that as a slight, right? We think, oh man, I must not be doing my job. No, they forgot about you already, and it might have been maybe 5 days ago that you talked, but they.
Oh man, I tell you, Breeze, people forget about you all the time. People are not thinking. Most people are like, what's right in front of them, and they've got all these worries. I think the independent thinker, or the person who's highly driven to get things done, right? Those people who are owning businesses, those are not the people who are shopping at businesses. So you got to
Yeah.
always think about the common denominator, right? What is the most stressed out person who's going to forget something in 3 minutes? Like, what is their buying behavior going to be? And that's how you got to market. So
Yeah, and on top of that, it's there's too many different channels, right? I think people they feel like they have to put this huge investment, money wise or time wise. That's with anything, right? To learn anything, you're gonna have to invest the hours in order to make it viable, right? They say 10,000 hours. I don't expect you to become a social media master, but you have to have some level of mastery in order to benefit from it, right?
mhm.
We saw a stat the other day. It was saying that people spend about 3 hours a day on their phone on social media. So if you're not there, that's an eighth of the year. That's 40 plus days that people are spending on social media. And if you're not there, you're not really in front of them at all, right?
Mhm.
Or people say, oh, nobody's watching. I had 100 views. I had 20 likes. I'm like, all right, well, that's 20 likes. That means 20 people took the time to consume your content. If you had a
Mhm.
classroom or a workshop full of 20 people, most of us would say that's a semi-successful workshop. So
Yeah.
just putting information out the right way is what's going to be important. It doesn't matter really how many people like it, as long as they resonate with it and can, work with you later from it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, knowing your audience definitely is one of the keys, right? Knowing what platform they're typically on, especially if you know who your client avatar is, right? That's one of the keys, is knowing who is my client and how do I stay in front of them with the right social media platform. Because there are a ton out there, and you can't be on everything unless you have a whole full team behind you. right? And we're talking for like people who are just starting out, getting into business, trying to figure out, how do I get this thing off the ground? And you've managed to do that through multiple companies, to be able to get that social media awareness, knowing, hey, this is where the client is, and this is how we're going to stay in front of them, by making sure that our content is relatable and resonates with them. I think that's the key in what you said, and it's consistency, right? Another thing I heard you say was, just because you started it doesn't mean that it stops. You got to keep going with this platform or this strategy as you built out another one over here. And that's the key, right? Let's figure out what is working. How do we measure that? And then, okay, let's take some of that and implement it over here, and let's see how they work side by side. And how do we keep growing those multiple platforms? Now, with that said, Breeze, my next question is, how do you prioritize your work-life balance while pursuing such ambitious business goals?
For me, it just calendar, right? I keep a pretty tight schedule and tight calendar. I try to get organized at the beginning of the week. So for me personally, I do the Warren Buffett 525 rule, like weekly. So that's like writing down the top 25 things that you need to do, putting them in order from most important to least important. And then I only focus on the top 5, and then I set and forget the other 20 until I finish the top 5. So then I just set my calendar based off that. I have the events that are going to be where they're at. And then the time in between, I set, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And we don't think about anything else until that's done and ready. So between that and, my normal life, I try to cut some, and I'm not perfect at it, right? Like I try to cut some of the time off the end to be able to allocate to, my people and to myself. But a lot of times without this in place, I would be thinking about work, even if I was, in a social scenario, or even if I was with friends or family, right? That's one thing that plagues me a lot, just having good ideas and having those backlogged in the back of my head. So that's one thing I have to get away from by making this schedule, making the calendar. It's the most important thing.
Oh yeah, I'd say as an entrepreneur, you're constantly looking for opportunity, right? It's based on just how we think, right? And we see it everywhere. We see abundance. We see opportunities to succeed, and that's the thing, is we can't take advantage of all of those opportunities to succeed. We have to let a lot of them go and just be like, you know what? Ideas are cheap and perspiration's expensive, right? So. But anyway, no, I can definitely relate. You gotta organize your calendar, and you gotta take time for family. Because at the end of the day, your customers wouldn't be there if your business didn't exist, right? Like if you just stop doing business, your customers are gonna go away, but your family ain't gonna go away because your business don't exist. So that's what you gotta think all the time.
Another piece with like your internal circle, right? The closest 5-10 people with you. Try to lean on them, as far as accountability partners, and that shit goes both ways. Excuse me, guys. That goes both ways, right? So the idea that I'm not responsible for your success, but I am accountable for if you are moving towards it, right? That goes both ways. I do the same thing with my friends. I make sure that I know what their goals are. I don't have to know their whole list of 25 if they want to, go that route, but I should know the top 3, top 5 things that they're trying to accomplish and be able to make sure that they are making moves towards it. You can clearly see if somebody's making moves towards it in most instances.
Yeah, it's obvious, Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like the gym.
Yeah, I like that. You said 2 key things right there, Breeze, is one, prioritizing tasks. Right. And that's such valuable information, because not a lot of people know. They just know, hey, I got to get all of this done. But there is no process in place to be able to do that. And that's where time management, along with your default calendar, they run in conjunction. So that's solid advice to it, as your business is growing or as you are getting things done. Having it on the calendar, knowing what tasks are priority, and then saying, okay, everything else is going to be put on hold until these things are done. And if they're not done, why not? Like, what's stopping you? something. A lot of it has to do with mindset. What I've learned is that we're either running away from something or we're
Right.
running towards something.
Mhm.
In between, how do you separate, right? And why are those tasks not getting done? It's typically because it's avoidance.
Right.
Are we avoiding success, right? And planning it back to the other thing you were talking about is that system and what you created with that 25 and taking the advice that you learned from Warren Buffett. That's solid. Really
Yeah.
like that. The other one is
See,
the accountability with relationships,
yeah.
right? Those two is figure out who you're surrounding yourself around, right? Are they empowering you to push beyond your comfort zone? And are they pushing you or are they dragging you down?
Mhm.
Right?
Right.
Are they feeding you things that, hey, that's a little insane, that's a little crazy, you shouldn't think that way, or you shouldn't do that. Those are the ones you have to really check yourself and saying, okay, should I continue to invest my time with them, or should I look for new people who are going to influence me in a positive direction?
Right. There's a piece to it where, we're allowing things that aren't really good to become bad. Um, if you don't focus on just the main topics that are at the top of your list, like you said, you're running away from them. Even if you're doing number 20, it feels like, hey, I'm still making progress towards the things that are important to the business. But no, now you're using number 20 as the reason for you not completing number 1 or number 2,
Mm-hmm.
right? That good thing becomes bad. Or let's say you are hanging around the good people and your inner circle is, as we say, people of value, right? That can add to you. But all you guys ever do is go drink, or all you guys ever do is, you never really talk business. You're just around them hoping to absorb some of that. You're not really hanging out with the intention of having growth some of the time, right? It doesn't have to be business all the time, but that should be a piece of it, is really just talking over those things. And usually people in that space are having fun doing that as well. So it's not like you're just throwing them off axis or making them stop have fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So, final question: what advice would you give 20-year-old Breeze who's just getting into business?
That's a good one. Don't be scared to just take huge chances. Don't be scared to take huge chances, right? There's a level of integrity that you have to have. And as long as you keep your integrity in place, then you should be able to take the hugest chances possible, right? Like, I can say when I first started in digital marketing, there was a time where, that imposter syndrome is like insane. You know what I mean? The imposter syndrome in a lot of these spaces is insane. And I'm sure you guys have had the same thing in your perspective industries looking back at it, but that's where you have to conquer some of that, right? Like, I've had a client at one point, they were talking about, and this is like a huge cannabis company, and this maybe 5-6 years ago, and they were talking about how they wanted to work with us, and we had never worked with anybody in that industry before, and they were ready to do a 6-month retainer, 10,000 a month, right? A lot of that fear kind of set in, but I just told them, we've never worked in this industry before, right? Even though that we think that we can do amazing things in the industry, we've never worked in it. So if you're willing to work with us, then we'll work 110 times harder to make sure that we're learning and researching all these things and putting in place the best practices that we already know. And they said yes, right? Like, that is one thing that if you just keep the integrity, you'll be able to push forward and get the contract, or you'll be able to grow the business, right? And you don't have to feel like, I just stepped into the deep water. No, I told you guys this was already deep water for me, right? And then I'm learning, and this is the experience. But
Yeah.
we're always going to be learning. And even when you master something, there's still a level up higher than wherever you think that you're at, right? So
Yep.
you're still wrong even when you're right, because there's somebody else above you that's more right, and they can show you an even better way to do it. So if you're okay with wrong, you'll be okay.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there, but I really like what you said at the beginning where you were talking about taking big risks, because I think oftentimes we actually perceive these things to have huge risks, like especially financial risks, but it's really not as risky as, like, for example, like stepping into a boxing ring with a tiger. Like, that's way more risky than whatever we're doing in business. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
like, you got to put it into perspective, you know? And once you deal with some of the consequences, like once you deal with the lack of success on a risk, you're like, you know what? Like, I'm still breathing. Like, I'll just take the next risk and I'll do it better and I'll learn from it and I'll be successful, and I'll be that person who's willing to take risks that other people are, going to sit on the couch and avoid, and that's how you end up being successful. And yeah, it can feel like you get imposter syndrome once you start getting that first taste of success, because you see your past failures and you're like, oh man, like, do I deserve to be in this room? It's like, yeah, you do. Like, you took the risk, so
There was
so
one thing
anyways.
that, let me say, there's one thing that a mentor told me, and I know you guys have heard this, right? Success begins where the comfort zone ends.
Mm-hmm.
But to take it a step further, from a performing sense, when you have those butterflies in your stomach, that's probably where you should be. I think we equate it as, this is like a deterrent. I shouldn't be going this direction. This is protecting me. No, the butterflies in your stomach are letting you know that you're in a place of growth, right? And if you take that, then hey, I'm in a space where I have an opportunity to grow. I have an opportunity to learn and shift my landscape right now. And even that has helped me to kind of get through those moments where I did have maybe a level of fear with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I want to echo what you said with the taking the risk. That's literally it. Is what stops us is self-sabotage, right? Is typically what stops us from betting on ourselves and knowing that you have the skills and there's knowledge out there for you to keep learning and growing. You said a lot, and I want to make sure the viewers catch this. Is yes, take a chance on yourself. Give yourself a timeline, right? Of, hey, let me go full throttle. See what I can do in 90 days, and let's learn from those 90 days. Set another bar and keep testing and keep betting on yourself. Keep learning. If there's an area of weakness that you're not good at, those are the books you should be reading. Those are the videos you should be watching. Go seek a mentor that's really strong in that weakness that you have and turn that into a strength, right?
Yep.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep taking risks. Davin, you said it's not like we're jumping into the deep end and you're right? It's going to be as detrimental, but it's knowing that, okay, how far can I push and what can I learn from this? And how can this apply at the end result of what we're looking to accomplish?
Amen.
Right? And those are the keys.
Yeah, we got about 30 seconds per guy. So Breeze, go ahead, go first. 30 seconds, what you got out of it. Then we'll go to Edgar, then we'll go to myself. Make sure at the end of that 30 seconds, you give people the best contact for you in case they want to do business with you or they want to reach out. Go for it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys for having me on the show. First thing, I just love talking business because I've been a part of so many and I've helped out so many. It's always a process of doing the research and making sure that we learn the most about the industry. So I'm always, a resource for anybody here, especially in Las Vegas. I love to just have people pick my brain and give them a good word or a new direction on something that I think could help them out. I always know the next best tool, right? So if you guys want to reach out to me on Breeze from Raw on Instagram, or you can just go to book.rawmarketinggroup.com. Those are my two best contacts right there for me.
Cool.
Perfect.
Edgar.
Thank you for today. Really, really a lot to unpack here. So I'm hoping a lot of people really pay attention to this one. Best way to get a hold of me is Edgar at masterthenetwork.com. Easiest way, or find me on LinkedIn. Those are the two best ways to get a hold of me.
Cool. Rock on. Breeze, I really liked how you were willing to share the entrepreneur experience that every entrepreneur goes through. Like when you talked about, risk aversion and imposter syndrome, I mean, Every entrepreneur has to deal with that. So thank you for opening that up to our audience. And for our audience, you can get in touch with me at davinsundvick.com. All right. Thank you for watching the Love of Business podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Yes.